At 1 o'clock on October 3, 2024, a rock broke loose high on Chaukhamba III. It did not hit either climber, it cut a rope. The black haul bag below them dropped into the void, carrying their tent, stove, food, warm layers, crampons, and ice tools with it. In seconds, Faye Manners and Michelle Dvorak went from chasing a first ascent to fighting for their lives. This was not a pair of beginners wandering into danger. Faye, a British alpinist, and Michelle, an American climber and climate scientist, had already shared serious expeditions. Together, they had climbed Denali's demanding Cassin Ridge and opened new routes in Greenland. They understood exposure and commitment and knew each other's strengths when there was no easy way back. Chaukhamba III rises almost 7,000 meters in India's Garhwal Himalaya. Its enormous southeast buttress was a dream objective, remote, unclimbed, and frighteningly direct. Faye and Michelle planned to climb roughly 2,000 vertical feet of steep granite, reach the south ridge, and continue toward the summit. Every meter upward would make retreat longer. They left their glacier base camp on September 27th. Before the real climbing even began, they had to solve a maze of crevasses and unstable snow bridges. It took 3 attempts to find a workable line through the ice. Then, on September 28th, they reached the buttress and committed themselves to the wall. For 5 days, they moved upward. During warmer hours, they could climb with bare hands, but the heat loosened ice and stone above them. Small pieces rattled down the face. Larger blocks could cut a rope or kill. When shade returned, their fingers became too cold to grip. They climbed from dawn until dark and tried to sleep on tiny ledges. By Thursday afternoon, they were nearing the top of the steepest section. Faye was above, leading. Michelle was below, following. Most of their shared equipment rode in a haul bag attached to a separate line. When that bag jammed, Michelle climbed above it to free it. The rock around her suddenly broke apart. Michelle held on. The bag did not. A falling stone sliced through its line, and the load vanished down the face. For one stunned moment, the loss seemed to mean only that the summit was gone. Then they mentally opened that falling bag and understood what had disappeared. Their tent, stove, and fuel, food, battery packs, Faye's satellite communicator, much of Faye's insulation, a headlamp, 1 pair of crampons and ice axes. The tools that made water, created shelter, and protected them on the glacier were now somewhere thousands of feet below. And almost on cue, the weather changed. Dark cloud closed around the mountain. Snow began to fall. Michelle still had a Zoleo satellite device, but it needed a phone to operate. Her phone was nearly dead. She connected it, triggered 1 SOS, and then the screen went black. Their position had been transmitted, but they had no reliable way to learn whether anyone had received it or when help might arrive. They considered descending immediately. They still had enough rope and hardware to rappel down the rock. But below waited the broken glacier that had taken 3 attempts to cross while fully equipped. Now they had only 1 set of crampons and axes. A fall into a crevasse could turn a rescue into a disappearance. So they stayed on a small ledge and waited. The first night brought snow, wind, and almost no sleep. Michelle still had more down clothing. Faye had lost much of hers. They shared the insulation and sleeping bag that remained, pressing close to preserve heat. With no stove to melt snow and almost nothing to eat, every shiver burned energy they could not replace. On Friday, the sound of rotor blades reached the wall. An Indian Air Force helicopter crossed the mountain, searching the broken ridges and gullies. Faye and Michelle tried to make themselves visible. From their ledge, it looked impossibly close. From the cockpit, they were tiny shapes swallowed by rock, cloud, and snow. The helicopter circled. Then it left. The rescuers had not seen them. That failure made the next night colder. They knew an operation had begun, but they also knew that a helicopter could pass directly in front of them and still miss. They were severely dehydrated, hungry, and exposed. Faye was becoming dangerously cold. Hope now had a sound, the rising thunder of rotor blades, and a cruel ending each time that sound faded into the distance. Saturday morning, the helicopter returned. Again, it searched. Again, the mountain hid them. Snow was building, and Faye believed another exposed night might kill her. Waiting was no longer safer. Should one climber take the remaining crampons and seek help? Should each wear one crampon and cross together? Could they even reach the ice before exhaustion stopped them? They chose movement. Weak from cold and dehydration, Faye and Michelle began rappelling down the buttress. Every anchor mattered. Leave too much gear behind, and they would run out before reaching the bottom. Trust the wrong block, and both could fall. They moved carefully, then faster, trying to escape the wall before another storm or night trapped them again. Late that afternoon, 4 figures appeared on the glacier below. The figures belonged to France's group Militaire de Haute Montagne. Bad weather had ended the French team's own attempt nearby, and they had learned that 2 climbers were missing. They were moving toward the last known position. Faye and Michelle rappelled as quickly as their exhausted bodies allowed. For a moment, the figures disappeared from view. Then the French team emerged directly below them, close enough to reach. The meeting did not end the danger, but it changed the equation. The French climbers had food, warm drinks, equipment, and strength. They helped the women off the wall and across the crevassed glacier that had seemed impossible with one set of tools. Together, the group descended toward the French advanced base camp, around 5,300 meters. That night, for the first time since the bag fell, Faye and Michelle were not alone. On Sunday morning, October 6th, an Indian Air Force helicopter reached the lower camp. At roughly 17,400 feet, the aircraft could finally extract them. One after the other, the 2 climbers were lifted away from Chaukhamba III alive. The rescue operation lasted roughly 80 hours. Success came from a chain in which no link could fail. Enough power for one SOS, Indian teams searching into bad weather, helicopter crews returning after failure, the French team changing its objective, and 2 exhausted climbers moving when staying still became more dangerous.